told her I would. Okay.
Oh, I forgot last week, so it's good.
Sorry,
Hey.
Veronica.
Okay.
Move on. My name's Laura.
Hi, Laura. All right. Alice, do you want to introduce yourself?
Why not? Thank you. And it's great to see you again. Emma, she is being very modest. She came to San Francisco and gave an absolutely fabulous workshop to the teachers of San Francisco Unified School District and was much loved. So I don't know whether we'll be back physically present or not come August, but no doubt we'll find out. But I think we have to be prepared somehow to go online. And like Laura, I'm of the age group where it's not safe, but I think it's not safe for anyone, particularly as itinerant music teachers. We see so many different children, so many different classes each day. And for most of us, it's at a different school every day. So not only are we more vulnerable, but we could become super spreaders. So I think they're not going to allow us to have physical contact with the children. So I'm most interested in what the presenters have talked about in terms of how to teach, do what we do virtually. And just to add something, since I might not have an occasion, I happened to see something called laughter yoga. I don't know if people have heard of that, but it's something that I think is so well complementary to what we do, or actually part of what, very rhythmic, lots of fun, very creative, lots of movement. So I just happened to discover that, and I'm really happy about trying to incorporate that as well into whatever teaching I do.
Lovely.
Thanks.
Della, do you want to introduce yourself? And then Catherine, I'll come to you because I see you're on mute, so I'll keep you.
Sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Della, and I am located in Vancouver, Canada. So I'm a private piano teacher for roughly 3 years, and so my focus is on private piano. But I was very drawn to Docros last year because the like improvised style and it's very experimental and involve lots of movements, so it's very good for small kids. My students are ranged from like 4 years old to 12 in different levels, from say beginner to level 10 in like a Royal Conservatory. And then recently I just have a baby, like 4 months old, so I'm looking forward to see how can I learn more about like young kids, like Docros method. So I'm very new here, yeah, but I'm happy to hear everybody's like experience. Yeah, thank you.
Lovely. All right, Catherine.
Yes, hello, I'm Catherine. This is Anna. I'm in Australia. I teach, I'm in this room because I do teach a kindy age group of music and movement classes, so 4 and 5 year olds. However, it's been on hold for quite a while now, and I'm hoping, it's looking like we'll be going back to teaching in about 3 weeks' time when our new term starts. So that I do through the University of Western Australia. They have a junior music school program, and I'm one of the teachers that teaches there. But I also am a clarinetist, so I teach clarinet through our state education department in schools, and that really is, my youngest children are 10 through to 17-year-olds. So that's my instrumental side, working with older kids, and my group music, classroom music side, working with younger kids. I've actually got half a term's worth of relief work for a person who's going on leave, and I'll be teaching kindy through to year 2, so they're sort of 7-8 year olds, and that kicks off in a few weeks too, so I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah, so that's why I'm in this room, and I have kids. This is my youngest one, she's in this age bracket, so we thought we'd be here and see what we can learn. Thanks everyone.
How old is she?
She's 4 and a
40
half.
years old. Perfect.
4 and a half.
Important distinction.
So I don't know, I think, Laura, it might be nice to see your activity that you've been working on for this age group.
Okay.
And I can intro a little bit by saying, because we just started the recording after you spoke, the little turtle activity that I did at the beginning of my demo, 5-minute demo, way back when, and you can find those archived. There's actually a Don Pratston activity that she taught me when she was our guest artist out here. So I can't take credit for it. I totally stole it. Now it's, of course, it's migrated and changed and evolved as we do in the Dalcroze world. But basically getting the independence of the limbs and waking up the body in a fun way was the goal of that. And so it was about a turtle who was in her shell and then poked one hand out and saw something scary, went back, and then all the limbs came out, etc. And we did one at a time, and we practiced stretching our heads. Another variation on that game is called Magic Rock, a beloved theater game, where you say magic rock, please turn yourself into a, and so you invite the children to be magic rocks. They turn themselves into anything you want them to be. They can practice all sorts of movements this way, and that works bizarrely beautifully from my youngest 3-year-old all the way up through my teenagers, because the teenagers love turning their friends into anything under the sun. So
Do you tell them what to be, or do they?
Like, for example, I have a class in the mornings right now that's ages 5 to 7, and I am telling them what to be in the characters of their story, and then, because we're doing theater stuff, and then I've invited them now to start coming up on day 2 and 3, or so the second and third class, they come up with their own versions of what to do. And I always sneak in whatever my movement goal might be, if we're working on skipping, or if we're working on hopping on one foot on the way to skipping, or if we're working on tiptoes, or I want them to learn about 16th notes and moving very quickly and lightly. I'll sneak in a character or an animal or something that will hone that goal.
Can I ask a question for, and then also just something that you've inspired me to think of. First, I'd like to know exactly what the chant is that you give to the children. And
yes, ma'am.
And then the other thing is, I had the good fortune to go to Cuba some years back, and there were these amazing trees of all kinds of different shapes, and I took pictures of them. And then I showed my class all the different types of trees, which were sometimes big and straggly, sometimes they were absolutely straight, sometimes they were bushy, gnarly, and they got to choose. So you could use a visual prompt, choose which type of tree you would like to be.
Great. So, in our Dalcroze world, we like to talk about the different strategies and techniques, and also the different types of reactions. So if we're thinking about a verbal cue, so me saying the cue, which is magic rock, please turn yourself into a rock first, is my thing.
Oh.
And then magic rock, please turn yourself into a waving tree. Magic rock, turn yourself into a fish. Magic rock, turn yourself into a leaping butterfly, etc., etc. And then the kids come up with the most wild of things. And so depending on your class, you might need to set some real parameters, but by and large, it's been very, very sweet and very fun. And I love the idea of the visual cue then, of being like, magic rock, turn yourself into this. It would be a really good way to just get imagination and creativity and movement. And then Laura, what was your activity? I'm curious.
So mine, basically, we started doing the story of the hungry animals in winter. I don't know if you all know this book. Dora Dubsky actually is someone from New York. She's probably not alive anymore, because when I met her, it seemed like she was in her 80s, and that was quite a while ago. But this book is called Storytelling Through Movement and Dance by Dora Dubsky, and it's a collection of stories for kids this age that we're meeting for. Just very simple. It's Oak Leaf Press here. I don't know anymore. I'm pretty sure you could still get it though. One of the stories is called The Hungry Animals in Winter, and we did that in school before the pandemic started. And so it's partly based on this story, partly, I guess, my own ideas, and partly Sean Hartley used this story in one of his classes that I saw. He's a Dalcroze teacher at the Lucy Moses School, and which is where I took Dalcroze classes. So in this story, she has a bunch of different animals. I chose, it's basically the story of a squirrel, a fox, and a deer. Those are the 3 animals that I chose. In some classes, it varied a little bit, but each animal has its own rhythm. And in the original story, they come out in the winter and it's icy and they can't find food. And some kids are looking in the window and they go and help the animals by buying the food. I don't have time to tell you the music that goes for that. That was Sean's part that he made up. And then they put the food in, and then I have the kids choose what animal they want to be at the end. They could be any of the three that they've all done. And they have to listen for the music that goes with each animal and come out and then they get their food that the kids have left for them. So that's the animals in winter. And then we had this pandemic. I was teaching on Zoom, and I decided that to then do the animals in spring and use the same 3 animals. So but I didn't have any of the instruments. In school, I think I used piano for all the instruments, and I don't have a piano at home. So for the squirrel, I used and the rhythm for the squirrel is scurry and a scurry and a scurry and a stop, scurry and a scurry and a scurry and a stop, scurry and a scurry and a scurry and a stop, scurry and a scurry and a stop. Look up, look down, look one way, then the other. And that's the basic rhythm of the squirrel. It was very helpful doing it on Zoom to have classroom teachers who like did everything, because if I was playing, I couldn't necessarily do the movements, and the teachers would all like do the scurrying part. So in this version, the squirrel comes out, they all move to that rhythm, and then the squirrel, you know, eats. I can't remember the word this second for dig. Yeah. And he digs and he digs. So you make up your own rhythm for the digging of the squirrels. The next animal that came out is the fox. This was Sean's, as I recall, his beat for the fox. For that, I actually have a drum. I'll just get it.
What I love about this is it's really specific about the types of rhythms. And I'm just
So it's just,
okay.
The fox, the fox, the hungry, sneaky fox. The fox, the fox, the hungry, sneaky fox. And, you know, that movement, a lot of the kids crawled away from the screen and came back. So like, the fox, the fox, the hungry little fox. And they would crawl around and come back. And then the fox finds fish that it had saved under the ground. And then it runs back home into its den in the forest. And the last one that I did is the deer. And for that I played, I don't know, it's what I heard from Carmina Burana. Sorry. And for that, the kids pranced. Sorry, I didn't do a very good job playing this right now. But anyway, they pranced. And one part that is great because it starts out with the prancing rhythm. Da, 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 da. But then when it goes, da, 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 they still prance. So they're prancing to, all of a sudden the notes are twice as fast. But I mean, when you see a 3-year-old do that, it's pretty impressive to me. Like, it was very special. So then at the end, I got the parents to comment, and I said that if they could take a little trip in the kitchen with their kids, they could find perhaps some tin cans and a pencil. So then the kids could play the squirrel's rhythm. And the drum was just any kind of a box. And for the deer, they could find dee, 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 dee. Something like that. Da, 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 da. Or anything that's metal, that rings, any metal thing. Wait. Da, 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 da. Or if they don't have a whisk. So any metal thing would work for that. And of
Laura,
course, for the
these are
fox, any kind of box would make a good drum.
nice stuff, Laura. I love the idea of finding found instruments in your
Yeah.
house.
So I called it a kitchen orchestra. And then the next time, of course, we did stuff also with like the quick response thing where I would just play the rhythm for the animal and they had to guess which animal it was. And then the next time they got to play the rhythms for these animals. And some of the kids just moved to it and some played instruments. And some brought little guitars instead and they just did it on their guitars.
So
That's
great.
that's basically.
Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, I can use some of this tomorrow, which is very exciting. I think a lot of us have made use of found instruments, but it's nice to think of them getting to develop their own percussion orchestra at home.
Yeah,
Della,
totally.
Della or Catherine, did you guys have anything that you wanted to share or ask about?
I was too new for Dalcroze, and but I do watch some video about how to teach, and I give a try with my group lesson. It works so well, and I can see they interact so good, and they can relate to what they learn in the theory and in the playing. But I was wondering about like baby, like baby stage. I know that there is some music together. They're just dancing with the music, but not very specific about experiences in a more like detail way. So I don't know how to teach younger kids, younger than 3.
So I'm a Music Together teacher, and I have a center here. Music Together was developed by a Dalcroze teacher, a wonderful man named Kenneth Gilmartin, a really great musician and a really fantastically smart person. The music is good, like the recorded stuff is actually quality things. There's a lot of attention paid to the fact that before the age of 3 or so, the whole development is around expanding the ear, getting different information in the body to train the locomotor so that we can get to fine locomotor, and developing hearing different tone centers, different meters, and the response to understanding the beat, the microbeat and the macrobeat, right? So feeling the differences between fast, medium, and slow. So I do use the Music Together curriculum, but for a long time I didn't have access to that because of various licensing in the area where I live. And I taught that way for a long time, and I'm also a Dalcroze teacher. And so I had taken my own stuff and done my own things. And I have to say that the part that's not talked about so much is, but they do quite a good job in that Music Together sequence, is the idea that the parent is really who you're teaching, and you're doing that through the kid. And so the more that you can get the parents singing and the more that you can get them involved, the more the child will do that, because the child is imprinting on me, but not nearly as much as they're imprinting on their own parent. So the more ways that I can get my parents to be involved, even in this Zoom land, and the more that I can encourage them to participate fully, even though, yes, it's easier at home when I'm on the screen to have my my phone out and be doing other things, the more often that I change directions and gears and involve them, then the more I get the kids to experience. And so there's a whole way that they talk about the arc, but starting with small kind of finger play stuff, going to a large locomotor thing, doing something with rhythm in every class, making sure that we do some laps, some songs, finishing with a lullaby. So this idea of developing an arc and having like an introduction, a ramp up, and then a ramp down for the kids is such an important ritual building aspect. And so I like to talk a lot, even with my talking about older class pedagogy when I'm teaching Dalcroze people who are becoming Dalcroze teachers, is the idea that you feel like it's time to move on. And if you're working with littles, the parents feel like it's time to move on, but the kids are not usually in that same space. They love repetition. They love doing the same thing again. And so, for example, Magic Rock can turn into Magic Tree. The turtle game can turn into a new animal, and you can work on the same concepts with slightly different costuming, as it were, and find a real development there that can help them build skills. Because what you're working on, especially for this pre-3 and 3.5-year-old, is just their ability to move fast and slow, their ability to learn how to sing along. They are not necessarily independent enough yet, though, for me to say, okay, walk with my music. And that's why Ken actually made that whole method, is he was trained as a Dalcroze teacher. And that's all post being able to A, walk, B, move quickly or slowly from there, and then C, being able to feel a beat. And what do you do pre that? And you have a little babe, you know that she's responding to music and she's responding to stimuli, but that there's a whole world of what happens previous to that. So I do love the fact that there's all these tonal centers explored and lots of different mixed meters, and culturally there's tons of music that's not just Western classical, which is important to me, but I enjoy that they've really delved deep into that. Anyways, go ahead.
Just to add a little bit to that, I found it's really good working with very young kids to do lap songs. Like some of them are just like tickling songs. Some of them are galloping beat kind of songs, 6/8 kind of songs. And some of them are 2/4, those kind of 3. And also lullabies at the end is good. And there's something else I was going to say, but.
Sorry, I went on too long.
No, that's okay.
Can I add something to that? I mean, Emma, you were talking about the basic things of just being able to do fast and slow. And another really vital skill, which even older children need and adults need, is stop and start. And there are great games that you can do with that as well. Just see if they can clap with you, see if they can stop on a dime, and they find that exciting. Or see if they can clap when you don't clap, which is a real challenge for very little ones. But the other thing is, what I thought what Della said was very important, because very often people think they're teaching Dalcroze or they're teaching music, and basically it's just music and movement, where they're not really, they're kind of basically moving freely to the music, and that's not what Dalcroze is. It's more, there is a sequence, and so, you know, what everyone has been saying, I remember my teacher at one point was Elizabeth van der Spar, and she mentioned the sequence of having them start stationary so the parents can help them just patch the beat, and then they can try it while they're sitting, moving their feet, and then they can do it standing up. But I mean, there's a whole series of things that you can do before they're simply getting up and moving to the music, so that you're really giving them the chance to hear and practice in as many different ways as possible, but with a specific musical rhythm or impetus behind it, not just get up and float around the room with the music.
Definitely.
So I just want to, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt this, but I do want to give Catherine a chance before it's time for us to head back to the main room, which we're a little over, but we're just going to let it run.
Sorry, I probably went on way too long.
No, I did too. Catherine, please, what are some of your questions?
I think I've resonated with a lot of what's been said about teaching the parents, not only the children. When I'd first started studying Dalcroze and started teaching in this way, it was about, before Anna was born, so a good 5 years ago, and I used to run music, and I wasn't a certified Dalcroze teacher then, so just music and movement, not Dalcroze classes from home, but I was using what I was learning in my study. And I ran them for preschool age children. So under, the oldest was probably 3, babies to 3-year-olds. And it was family groups. So there'd be like a newborn and a 2-year-old, or the twins who were 3. And the parents were really involved because of the age of the kids. Hang on, sweetie. The kids weren't able to do things much that was independent. And so that's when I first realized, actually, as much as anything, I need these parents to learn these songs. And when a family would come back and say, oh, that song that we always sing it at home in the bath, that's become our bath time song, I'd think, yes, I've won. Because it was like what was happening in the classroom was being taken by the family and repeated at home. And I realized, oh, that's really got to be one of my main goals. And the other thing that somebody mentioned, oh, hang on, I'm going to lose my train of thought now. What was it? I've been having a side conversation all the way through with the 4-year-old, which has been awesome. What did I want to say? No, I think it's gone.
It's okay.
It's
If it
done.
comes back, no. So I think one of the things that Alice, that you brought up that is really important in this age range is this idea of self-regulation. So in my nonprofit, my partner is a psychologist. So I spend a lot of time learning and getting to educate myself a little bit more about the development of the brain at different ages. And hang on, I'm getting a text here from Veronica probably telling us that we've got to get back. Okay. Stephen says, Stephen says to wrap it up, kids. So I'm going to wrap it up. But anyways, if you guys are interested in any more resources about different stages and what's happening in the brain, I have some really simple handouts that don't nearly go into depth enough, but you can shoot me an email and ask me for them, and it's a nice leaping off point. That's a gift that came later in my life after becoming a licentiate, that I had this, started a little nonprofit with a colleague who is brilliant and completely in a different field in a sense, yet completely in the same field that I am in. And so the idea about self-regulation is this idea that, when you have those babies on the lap of their parent, their world and their parent's world and the world around them is all one and the same, right? And so as they grow and they start to recognize that I am me and that's different than you, and I'm here in the music, but there's also this connection and what we could call an association and a dissociation between myself and the world out there. That's the beginning of them being able to regulate their own response to things. And so I think that is a really valuable thing that Dalcroze explores in a really unique way and very specifically, is this idea of I'm going to respond, and the ways that I can respond are verbally, visually, tactilely, auditory. All of this stuff is ways that I'm working on what they would call in that world self-regulation. And so I really value that this work has been around for a very long time and does a lot of things that are the hot button topics. It integrates different learning styles, which is where the name of my little nonprofit came from. It has this possibility to work on skills that is like multimodal. So if a child has a tendency to want to be more verbal, or has a tendency to be more kinesthetic, or has a tendency to be more visual, you can not only play to their strengths, but help them build where they may not be as comfortable in ways that feels very playful. And so I think that's a blessing that we have. And so I think that the way in for the adults is that they see the joy for their kids, and you're getting them to do, to see the dads dancing with scarves because it's for their children, for example, and getting out of their kind of stereotypical roles, getting the moms away maybe I'm not trying to say moms are this way or that way, but to get moms into the playful world of doing with their kids versus regulating their children's behavior, and actually getting them to participate in a way that's more about the joy of what's happening, has been very useful in my classrooms.
One thing that I should have done, because I've not been doing young kids that long, babies, it's really helpful to say at the beginning, especially if you're not only working with parents who tend to be very clued in, but caretakers not always as much, to say something about, this is really an opportunity for you to get involved, and maybe put your cell phones inside your pocket, and because sometimes, especially I found like the caretakers will sometimes just sort of slip away and start like using their cell phone, and that's not a really good message. So it helps to just say it right out front, and then you don't really have the same issue with it.
I mean, I am not as, I don't know if I'm older or younger than I seem, but when I first started working with parents, I was barely 19. And so I definitely was not the authority on children. I might have been the authority on teaching music to children in that room, but it's a very interesting role to play, to be the teacher in a classroom, because you are not the expert on their child, but you are the expert on how to work in this medium and teach this language.
Yeah, how the class
Yeah.
should go. And
So
just the,
it's a
oh,
good
finish.
Sorry, Laura.
No, the other thing that I remembered I wanted to say is if you're using nursery rhymes, and they're great, like Humpty Dumpty and all those songs are great for lap songs, but be careful. Some of them like use words like one for my master, and a lot of yes ma'am in some of those old songs. It's not so cool to use that anymore, and people are looking through these songs and making those changes. So if you're starting out, just be aware of that.
And I would say it's very Del Crozian indeed to rewrite any lyrics or any melodies to suit anything that you need to do. And since we so often are looking for developing skills in the first instrument of the body, I encourage people to reshape anything you want. And imitation is the highest form of flattery, but there are so many great resources, especially that you'll find even in the past recordings of meetings of seeing people teach. And I always, if I'm going to rewrite something, I always credit the person, or if I'm using Dawn's exercise, I'll say I'm using Dawn's exercise. And there's such a great wealth of songs and ways to use songs out there. Is there anything that we should probably head back, because I told them that I would. I put the link here. Is there any last burning questions or thoughts before we head off?
What is the link to?
So the link is back to the original meeting, because once I
Oh,
end this,
How do we get back there?
So if you click on that link, it should pop open another box.
Oh, go back to the original and
Yeah, and that's
sign
the
in
first-
again.
Exactly.
First?
Where is the link though, Emma?
I put it in the chat box.
Oh,
Oh,
I don't see it.
I
can't
don't
see
see
it
it
either.
either.
I'm going to do it one more time. So at the
Yep.
bottom of your screen, there should be something that says chat. And if you click on
Yeah.
that, you'll see, did it pop up?
There's nothing in the chat though.
Yeah, it's not coming up.
Oh,
Is
interesting.
it under file or the three dots?
It's saying everybody in meeting.
Do we just click on leave and will it come up?
Can
No.
we just sign in? Oh, there it is.
Yes, I'm sending it to each one of you individually, because
Oh,
If
thank
that, it's not like, doesn't have that click thing.
it's sending it weirdly to the
Oh.
waiting room. I don't know.
There it is. Thank
I've-
you.
Did everybody get it? Della got it? Okay, cool. Guys, lovely to see you guys. I'll see you back over there. Thank you for this wonderful meeting.